Hey everyone, and welcome back to Financial Future. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So the big news over the last week, of course, is that all Social Security beneficiaries are going to be receiving a 3.2% increase next year in 2024, thanks in part to the cost of living adjustments. So whether you rely on SSI or SSDI benefits, you are going to be receiving that 3.2% increase. However, this really got me thinking that the government is essentially saying here that inflation, what prices have risen by since July, August, and September of last year when compared to these same months this year, has only risen by 3.2%. Now, I don't know about you, but over the past year, it sure seems like I've been spending more than 3.2% on the exact same goods and services. I remember just on the grocery store alone, probably last year, I think I might have been spending maybe 6, perhaps even 7, at the store that I purchased the same goods and services. And when you compare that to this year, I'm spending $90 to $100. That's pretty much like a 40 to 50% increase, much higher than the 3.2% that the government is claiming. Now, of course, they are using other figures, other statistics than just food prices when calculating the CPIW, but we're going to be looking at some numbers today, which clearly show that this formula is rigged and that inflation is actually much higher than 3.2%. And if it is much higher than 3.2% and we're only giving cost of living adjustments to seniors and other people receiving Social Security benefits an increase to 3.2%, well, their money is pretty much going to be deteriorating year over year, and our dollar is less and less value. But before we go ahead and dive into the main content of today's video, if you wouldn't mind helping me out real quickly by just giving this video a like, that just helps out with the good old YouTube algorithm, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. Okay, so as I just mentioned a moment ago, of course, they are saying inflation has only risen by 3.2%. Let me know in the comment section below if your expenses have only risen by 3.2% from last year to this year. I'm sure for many of you guys like me, you've seen your expenses have risen by a lot more than just 3.2%. For many of you, I'm guessing 10% or even more than that. The government has its own math that they manipulate in a dodgy way. So again, that's pretty much absolutely mind-blowing evidence there. The prices have absolutely increased a lot more than 3.2%. Now, obviously, like I mentioned just a moment ago, they were not only looking at these items when figuring the CPIW, but it's clear, at least to my mind, that the government is absolutely rigging the statistics to make it seem like inflation is actually not rising at as fast of a pace as it actually has. And believe it or not, they've actually changed the formula since the 1980s to make inflation in the numbers that are coming in not seem as bad. If we look at the highest COLAs that we've ever had, of course back in 1979, the COLA was 99.9%. Then the following year in 1980, it rose all the way up to 14.3%. That was the highest of all time. And then in 1981, it came in at 11.2%. Now, of course, last year, it was 8.7%. But if they did not change the formula since the 80, then again in the 90, an 8.7% COLA last year for this year actually would have been a lot higher, probably close to 20% and the highest of all time. And one of the downfalls of this, of course, is it's going to cause a lot of people on Social Security benefits to just continue to work because they need this money. The amount of benefits that they're receiving is not enough to pay for rent, medical expenses, food, and any other bills that may come up. It's just not enough to get by. So because of that, we're having a lot of retirees being forced to go back to work, either on a part-time or sometimes on a full-time basis. Now for some folks, it might be a deal where they just retire, they think it's a dream, they're sitting around for a few weeks, and then they realize, well, I may want to return back to work just to have something to do during the day and maybe for the social aspects of it as well. And for them, great. But then there's also some folks who, unfortunately, are looking at what they're receiving in Social Security benefits, and what they have in savings, and their savings are dwindling away. And they're like, oh, well, I probably do have to return to work because what I'm receiving is just not going to be enough to get by, or at least get by.